Welcome to our Meet the Candidates interview series. We are looking at Midtown right now. Ron Alleva, you are running for that open spot. How you doing?
Real good, and thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. What makes you the most qualified candidate for this assembly seat?
Well, based on my past experiences in education, and I think I'm in touch with reality, that I can listen to people on the far left, the far right, and come to an acceptable ground in decision making that affects us for the present and in the future. So I feel comfortable with that.
If voters agree and they choose you to represent them, what is the first issue you would like to tackle or the first action you want to take as an assembly member?
Well, I think there's multiple mini crises facing the city, but I think a big one, of course, is public safety. And my belief is there has to be more public involvement. I'm against hiring any more policemen because I think the morale of them doing their job and being stretched sometimes a little thin when they do make arrest, it's a revolving door. I think the state threw us a loop with Senate Bill 91 on raising limits to crime values. I think the prisoner release has been very difficult on public safety. And then also I think we create attractive nuisances in the city that it kind of expands the crime. But there's no punishment. So we have to work with the courts and with adequate punishment to defer crime.
What are your thoughts on the budget the Assembly just passed? Is there something in there you would have changed? Do you agree with how things went?
Well, I don't agree with how they allocate monies. Of course, the police, there's a lot of talk about special units coming back when they do budget for the police, and I think that's wrong, like a drug unit. Recently, the undercover agents that they had settled for $2 million and cost the city $1 million in litigation. What we need in that allocation of the budget, in where we're $6.2 million short, those policemen and women are out there giving tickets to make up that revenue. And we lost probably $1.5 million in the permanent fund because fines were taken out of and garnished from people's permanent fund. So filling in those gaps in the budget, I'm not real happy with the way they juggled the money and spent the $14 million surplus that they had last year.
Do you support a sales tax as a way to shift the burden off of just property owners?
Well, there's all types of taxes out there, bed tax, cigarette tax, you could go on and on. We're scary about a real estate transfer tax, but the sales tax isn't my first source of increased revenue. However, the state is looking hard at a sales tax statewide and looking at Anchorage as their pot of gold. How would we get that money back from the state? If they were to impose a state sales tax, then I'd rather have a city sales tax and keep it all within the municipality.
What grade would you give the municipality on how it's dealing with our homeless issue right now?
Oh, is there a letter beyond a -Z?
That low?
Well, you know, I own a business adjacent to the shelter in Beans, and I did sue them. And I did it myself. I won. I took the settlement to the assembly, and it wasn't about the money. It was about providing their own security guard, their own medic, and their own commercial garbage pickup. And I think what they have done, including packages like the homeless coordinator, $180,000 for that position, is way out of line. That's 2 policemen, 3 teachers, and you could probably get 10 nuns for that position. But how they're dealing with it is they're making Anchorage a magnet to more. So if they can, and professionally, and professionals say if you eliminate one, two will come in their place. And that's what's happening in Anchorage. The population isn't going down. It's going up, and it's causing a great burden on our paramedics, our police, and our fire department.
So how do we fix the problem? What would you do to change that?
Well, I'm turning more into a Darwinist, and I would say they have become such a subculture of almost a parasite to the host, to people's goodness, compassion, etc., that the pandemic's coming to kill them, spice or disease such as in Fairbanks, but also they're going to kill the host. You have to deter them. You have to go back to triage. 3 days and you're out. You make a bad decision. Hey, you made a bad decision. That's not my responsibility to continuously save you from your bad decisions. And what happens? Well, you die. And, well, that happens and we move on.
So you're suggesting we help them for 3 nights and then we let them die?
Well, you let them make their own decision. I mean, I think recently I saw something where in Northern Australia there's a sign, do not swim here due to alligators. Well, if you swim there, what's going to happen to you? If you do spice and we save you one time and you know it's bad for you and you've been instructed, advised, rehabilitated, detoxed, and you go back to it, I think that's a wasted resource. And when you have small children suffering with cancer and debilitating diseases, I think we have priorities of who deserves our resources and who should receive them. And we only have so much. If someone wants to take a homeless and save them again, take them in their backyard. If the church wants to save them, take them into their facility. Don't burden the taxpayer of Anchorage with some sort of social issue that we didn't bring upon us. Fair enough.
I know we've already talked about this, but you said you do not support hiring a bunch of more officers, and the mayor is going to hopefully get 56 more this fiscal year. Do you think there are ways other than hiring more officers that the Anchorage community can address public safety concerns?
Well, I think you have to look at what he's looking for the drug unit. I mentioned the undercover cops. They didn't know, fellow APD officers didn't even recognize their own policemen as undercover cops. Cost us $3 million. What I think we should rely on, if you want a drug unit, is push the DEA. Our chief is a former DEA officer. I think you can look to the U.S. Marshal. I think you can look to the FBI. I think you can look to the state troopers. I think the Anchorage Police Department doesn't have to cover all aspects of crime. And fighting drugs would be number one. And then, as I stated, if you catch the criminal, he's not going anywhere. He's not going to jail. So what you need is more of a public relation officer. They're trying to put a social service person, non-police officer, with an officer to go to these camps. Well, everyone who's a victim of crime needs to be counseled. What could we do to prevent it? I know you're scared, you feel violated, but what can we do now from this point? Because going online and typing a report, that's not going to work. And if the police officer has to give you a ticket for your tail light or speeding to pay his own salary, that's not going to be a good day for you when the officer says, here's your ticket, it has to pay my salary, have a nice day.
I have another police officer question for you. The mayor said he will not allow our police department to round up refugees for immigration service, even under the threat of losing federal funds. Do you agree or disagree with that position?
Well, I agree with that. You know, this is America. My father was an immigrant. My brother has dual citizenship. What is happening in this country, whether it be walls or the immigration policies, I think is totally wrong and against our Constitution. So I respect the mayor's decision. I would support him with that, and it should go unsaid that we would lose federal funds. We can live without it.
Last question for you. Do you think Anchorage should find a way to allow ride-sharing companies like Uber and Lyft to start operating here?
Well, both Uber and Lyft are of the philosophy or business mission to fight climate change. 60 Minutes just did a release about Lyft, and to get more people into cars, it's kind of like mass transit. But here in Anchorage, we're playing with a deck of cards that regulates the taxi industry. And the people who purchase permits, both from the city and in the free market, have to be acclimated to the arrival of maybe new technology and a new methodology without causing extreme economic harm. I'm an auctioneer. I can pick your pocket with my tongue, but the idea is the internet came and we have to transition to that new technology. So when Uber and Lyft get new ideas, we have to play with the same deck of cards, but meaning the same rules for safety, background checks, rates, the type of car you're going to use, and then charges. I mean, it could be a real free-for-all. And right now, we have enough crime in the city without people picking up taxi fares, and lo and behold, they end up no criminal background checks and actually become a threat to a rider.
All right. Ron Alleva, you're running for the open seat in Midtown.
All right.
Thank you for your time.
And I'm going to win.
Best of luck.
Yes. All right. Well,